Hey guys, thanks so much for watching Common Sense Culture. I'm James. Hope you're having a wonderful day. In today's episode, I want to talk to you about a composting experiment that I'm doing. So if you've been watching the channel, you know that we've had about 3 dump truck loads of wood chips dropped in our front yard. And I've been spending hours and hours spreading those across both the back and front yard. I have a video about why I did that, what it does for the soil, preparation for garden, all of that. But it turns out that we are probably, hopefully going to be moving somewhat soon. And so now I have to rake up all those wood chips, which is much harder than spreading them. What I've been doing is, because the wood chips have been sitting for so long in the weather, getting wet, drying out, decomposing, getting mixed in with bug life and all this stuff, a lot of it has already turned into compost. Probably about half of the wood chips have turned into somewhat usable compost. So what I'm doing is sifting the wood chips, getting the finer stuff, and that is turning into compost pretty quick. I'm using Jeff Lawton's method of the 18-day compost. Definitely look that up if you don't know what I'm talking about. And I'll be doing a video once I have a successful run of it. This pile behind me is currently I got it up to 130 degrees for about 3 days, and now every 2 days I am turning it and wetting it, and that is getting it to decompose. And that should be ready within 18 days, and maybe even less, because this is already pretty fine, fairly usable stuff. But I'll go into more details on that. Actually, before I started raking up the wood chips, I did mow the yard, and I used my gas mower instead of my scythe, so that I could get some fine green stuff mixed in with the wood chips. That seems to be helping. But I wanted to show you a little bit about what I'm doing, what I'm experimenting with right now. It's taking a lot of time. I've already had a couple of friends come help me do this, and that was very helpful. I'm going to need some more help. So here's the fine stuff, and this is what I've been turning. I've turned it about 3 times now. I got it up to full temperature, and then I've been bringing all the outside stuff in the middle, turning it over, wetting it down, putting the inside stuff on the outside, and with that process, the core of it heats up and kind of decomposes. It's already making a pretty nice compost. These are the rough wood chips that I have going. These are the ones that don't fit through the sifter that I'm using. So they're really chunky, really big. We'll be using them down the line, probably putting in some more nitrogen to help those decompose and turn into compost a lot faster. And then this little pile I actually have is coming from this rough wood chip pile, but every time we're taking out our scraps, our food scraps, I'm putting them on top of this, and then putting on a good layer of the rough wood chips, and that's going to help those turn into compost down the line. So here are some of the areas that you can see I've already raked up a lot of the wood chips, raking them into piles, and throwing them through a sifter. I'll show you that the exact process that I'm doing in a second. So you can see that we have a lot of wood chips piled up. Most of them are just waiting, and then we have a couple of piles both in the front and backyard where we're putting the fine wood chips and then the thick wood chips, and then eventually we'll have all these piled up. And if we move, we're going to try to get all of this, the finished compost and the rough wood chips, over to where we'll be moving. That way we can use the rough wood chips for waste and to continue making compost, and then we can use the fine compost to do another round of gardening, hopefully by fall. Hopefully we can get started before fall. Here you can see the only plants from my last gardening update, the only plants that made it. I seem to have a couple of tomato plants and then 2 different types of basil plants. The basil plants taste really good. Those are actually doing great. Then over here I have some cilantro and fennel. They're just tiny guys. We'll see if they make it. Probably what I'm going to do is, once I have some compost to plant them in, I'm going to mix some compost with some sand and then plant these in a large pot all together and try to keep those alive. We're well past the date when they should really be thriving, so I don't know if they'll actually produce, but I want to keep them alive as long as possible. I've made a lot of mistakes in the gardening. I've been very ignorant about how it's supposed to work, but I'm learning. I'm definitely learning. I think I'm ready for another try, but if we're going to be moving, I don't really want to get started here. So we're trying to get a handle on that, get an idea. I don't want to give away too many details on the possible move, but it'd be pretty close to where we already are at, and a really great opportunity because we would potentially have the chance to help someone to raise their animals. We'd learn how to keep some animals. And we get some invaluable skills there, also some building skills. Anyway, that's a potential update down the line. We'll see how everything works out. So you can see here we have the wood chips raked up, and I'm just shoveling them up about 3 at a time. I got this hardware cloth. It's about it's 1/2 inch hardware cloth. Made a rough frame. I definitely could have done this better. I should have done some actual wood joints as opposed to just trying to nail them together, and it would have held together better. But it is what it is. I made a frame, nailed in the hardware cloth, and I'm using that to kind of sift them. It seems to be a good size to get what I need out of it. And I'm just putting the rough wood chips in these buckets, dumping those, and then doing the same with the finer stuff, keeping those separate. That way I can use them for their respective purposes. So yeah, as far as the details go regarding making the compost, it seems to be working so far, but I really want to get a good batch to be able to show before I walk through the process that I'm taking. You can look up Jeff Lawton, that's GEOFF his 18-day compost. That's the process that I'm using. But I'm hoping to give an update down the line once I have some. Obviously I have a pretty good start. I have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm about halfway through one of the cycles, and it looks like it's going to be some pretty good compost. So it shouldn't be too much longer before I could do an update on that. And then as far as other videos go, I'd love to get your input. I'm considering kind of throwing out some feelers on Facebook. Yes, I do have a Facebook again. I'm going to be helping with some marketing for an Orthodox nonprofit. I'm going to be helping with some online marketing. So I got a Facebook. So I'll probably go ahead and do a Facebook group for this channel. You could go ahead and search for that if you want. Don't quite have everything set up yet, but I'll do my best as far as keeping up with that. But on a personal note, I'm putting out some feelers. What are some good topics I could cover here? Seems like some of the good ones that are kind of standing out are maybe going over what is the church. There's some very modern ideas on what the church is that a lot of people feel are just kind of the standard, and that the Orthodox view is too divisive, but that's only because of the time frame that we happen to live in. I'd like to cover that a little bit. Maybe cover some basics on what the church believes. Obviously, being very careful about not putting myself in a position of authority. As I don't want to do that. But going over some really basic stuff regarding what the church believes, the Orthodox Church. Maybe doing some videos on icons, just some of the really practical aspects of Orthodoxy. Not getting too in depth. I don't believe that it's a worthwhile effort to try to change somebody's mind, and maybe a video can touch the heart in some way. I think if a video can do anything, it's just to spark an interest, spark a thought, spark a question, and that's really all I would want to do. I wouldn't want to try to convince anybody, but this is important. I believe that the gospel, the good news, it's only good news if Christ set up a way for the fullness of revelation to be preserved through time. And I live in America, where America was kind of founded primarily as a Protestant country, and so there 30, 40, 50 some thousand Protestant denominations now, all disagreeing with each other on what I would consider very important aspects of the faith, and I consider them important because, you know, Christians throughout time have considered them very important. And so I feel like there are a lot of misunderstandings within America in regards to Orthodoxy. Like there are a lot of things that you know, maybe American Christians just take for granted as, you know, this is the standard Christian belief, but you know, historically it's, you know, very liberal and very new and wouldn't exactly be recognizable to the early church. So I feel like there are a lot of practical things that maybe I could just raise the question, spark an interest or something like that, and so I'd love to get your thoughts on, you know, what are some of those things that maybe you'd like to hear me cover. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you're having a wonderful day. If you like this video, please click the thumbs up. If you have any constructive criticism, you know, leave that in the comments, and definitely, you know, click the subscribe button. We're almost to 200. That would be a pretty big deal for me to reach that, so, you know, share this with your friends if you think it's worth it to do so. More and more thinking about the whole t-shirt idea. Again, I don't really like the idea of putting out anything cheap, but maybe you know some companies that put out some, you know, fairly good quality stuff. You know, I still love the idea of having the shirt that says "Ask your priest," you know, or something like that. I think as Orthodox Christians, we don't want to be too quick to put ourselves in a position of authority. We want to, you know, have discussions, spark interest, talk about things. Ask questions, you know, answer questions to some extent, but mostly, if you have questions, you know, I'd love to talk to some extent, but for the most part, I'm going to say ask your priest, ask a priest, ask, you know, Orthodox priest that's close to you, go to services, you know, that's the biggest thing. But anyway, thank you guys again, God bless, have a great day.